Hello everyone, I'm Bruffy1322 and welcome to the Stewards room, where we'll be taking a look at racing incidents submitted by you guys and trying to make a determination on who, if anyone, was at fault. There's a link in the description to submit your own clips, and feel free to check out the playlist link for more of these videos, specifically the first, which acts as a scene setter. Also, keep an eye out for cards popping up on screen towards the end of each segment where you can vote on who you thought was at fault for each incident. So clip 1 is from a league race, I think, on F1 2018, or 2017 actually. We've seen a few of these, and we see that the Toro Rosso goes down the inside of the Ferrari, and then the Ferrari hits the Toro Rosso. It's basically a big old mess, and it was all started from a pretty ambitious move, really, from the Toro Rosso. So the Toro Rosso, as you can see, will slow it down, tries to do a little dummy, goes to the inside, but there's not really the space there to go. Cuts the corner. This was just a mess, to be honest. That wasn't really a move that was on. And we'll have a look at the racing document, the rules of racing, in a second. But yeah, that wasn't really gonna happen. So once again, back with the rules of racing document, which you've seen many times in this series, and specifically about what you need to do to be able to make an overtake up the inside, and the attacker basically has to be at least halfway alongside the defender when they reach the apex to have a reasonable claim to that piece of track. So if the attacker is more than halfway alongside, as we've been over before, then the defender is at fault for any contact. If the attacker is less than halfway alongside, then it's the attacker that's at fault for any contact. And if they're approximately halfway alongside, then they both share the blame. So let's go back to the clip, and as you can see, the Toro Rosso sort of moves to the right and then moves to the left again to try and fake out the Ferrari and go up the inside. Now at this point, you can look at this and say there's enough space to get a car through, but the Ferrari isn't really moving definitely straight. He's still moving in a trajectory that brings him towards this side of the track. The track also goes to a point where it moves to the right as well. So we've got the track coming over to the right. We've got the Ferrari coming over to the left. And this episode is all about making smart decisions. And I don't think this is a very smart decision to be going for an overtake in such a way. When there's such a small amount of space, okay, you can try it, but obviously, as you can see, they make contact way before the apex or the entry to the corner. I feel like the Ferrari has done enough defensively there that any move from the Toro Rosso is obviously going to be, it's not going to work, and that's exactly what happens. They make contact that is entirely on the Toro Rosso, in my eyes. That it was just a desperate lunge to go up the inside that was never really on. So I would be expecting the Toro Rosso to really give the position back at this point. But also the Ferrari is at fault for the next part of it, because he keeps his foot in, cuts the corner, and goes, to the back of the Toro Rosso. So this was just bad driving from everyone, to be honest, or at least both of these guys. Everything that happens in this clip is it's just not good. It's just not good racecraft. And I said it in last week's episode as well. Trying to get someone back and take them out for something that you feel aggrieved on should also be deserving of a penalty, if not more of a penalty. So if I was a steward, I would be giving both of these guys penalties. One for a pretty terrible move that caused a collision from the Toro Rosso, and then for a retaliatory move from the Ferrari cutting the corner. We can actually see it a bit further on as well, just to solidify that he could quite easily make the corner here, but he accelerates over the grass and takes out the Toro Rosso there. So they're both, in the heat of a battle, you can kind of understand maybe that that the Ferrari feels aggrieved, and they're both just driving badly at this point. That is not good driving from either of them, to be honest. So I'd be giving both of these guys penalties. But obviously we're not talking necessarily about the retaliatory aspect of the second part of it. We're just talking about this incident right here. Who is to blame? You can vote in the top right. Is it the Toro Rosso for making a move that wasn't really on? Is it the Ferrari for I don't know, defending too hard when the Toro Rosso was already there? Or is it just a racing incident and just one of those things? Vote in the top right who you thought was at fault just for this specific part. Obviously, if it was up to me in this kind of situation, like I said, I'd be giving both of them penalties for different reasons. But for this video, we're just strictly focusing on this move here and who was at fault for this initial contact. That's what I want to focus on. So our second clip, and we basically have a classic again. We've seen not very smart decisions made in the previous clip from both drivers, and we're seeing another not very smart decision made right here. And at this point, you can't put any blame on anyone other than the attacker at this point. You know, going for an overtake in this spot is not going to work. It's such a fast corner. You have to make a smart decision about whether you're going to be able to get an overtake done. And you know, it's not the kind of corner that you're going to be able to get an overtake done unless you are significantly far ahead of the other car. You know, you want to actually be further ahead. You don't just want to be trying to get up the inside and claim that you're halfway alongside and be able to take the corner. So I think it's slowed down on the clip here as well, thankfully for us, which is going to prove that the guy on the inside is at fault for this one. Because obviously, as you can see, the outside starts to turn in. They're not even at the apex yet, so that just goes to show something. But you can see it quite clearly that the attacking car isn't far enough alongside the defending car. You know, the middle of the car is here. They're pretty much touching front wheel to rear wheel. And as we saw from the rules of racing document that we just looked at the start of the video, when the attacker is less than halfway alongside, then it's entirely the fault of the attacker if any accidents happen. Having said that, this just wasn't a smart move. Like I said, this is all about making smart decisions. Sometimes when it comes to the rules of racing, you can not make a smart decision but still be correct in the rules as they are set forth. But in this situation, not making the smart decision put you on the wrong side of the rules here as well. He's clearly nowhere near halfway alongside. It's too fast of a corner to be going for an overtake on the brakes in that kind of situation. And yeah, in my eyes, that's entirely the fault of the person going for the move in a situation where it was never really on. And you can even see, you know, at the very end, the direction, the outside car, the outside Renault is taking the racing line, which he's entitled to do. And you can see the difference in direction of the way that the cars are moving. This is what a car should be doing for this corner, and the attacker is still going straight. So it would be questionable whether he's even making the corner in the first place. So yeah, entirely the fault of the attacker for that one in my eyes. But as always, there's a poll in the top right. You can leave all your comments down below as well for what you think of any of these clips today. But yeah, some not very smart decisions that we've seen today. So I just talked about the idea that sometimes you can not make the smart decision but still be correct in the rules of racing, and I think this is a perfect example of it for our third clip here. So we see that the Honda, the Nissan is coming up on the outside of the Honda. The Honda is holding his line and also moving over to the left a little bit, but does give just enough space for a car width. But the Nissan ends up losing control. As you can see, you know, the person who sent this in is trying to prove his innocence by showing that he had enough car width there. And this is kind of continuing on from last week's episode with how much space you need to leave for a car on a straight. And we'll go back and have a look at that when we see from the rules of racing document. But, you know, he does just about leave enough space. It's probably about as marginal as it could possibly be, but he's also not making a smart decision by doing what he did. So we saw this from the last episode. When you're racing alongside another car, if two cars have any parts alongside one another, each driver must respect the space occupied by the other car, and it doesn't matter who's ahead nor how far ahead they are. They may not initiate a move into the other car. So essentially, you're not allowed to just turn to the left if there's a driver on your left, regardless of how much distance they are above them, alongside you. And one extra point from that is also the idea of aggressive bullying of another driver on a straight is also disallowed. So maneuvers liable to hinder other drivers, such as deliberate crowding of a car beyond the edge of the track or any other abnormal change of the direction, are not permitted. So going back to the clip, we can obviously see that the Nissan moves over to the left hand side because he's got to run on the Honda. Now, as we've just seen, deliberate crowding of another car or abnormal changes of direction are not allowed. Now, this isn't necessarily an abnormal change of direction from the Honda. The track, as you can see from the car in front as well, it is you want to be over the left-hand side to be taking a right-hand turn further up the road. So moving over to the left on this straight isn't an abnormal change of the direction, and he doesn't deliberately crowd the driver beyond the edges of the track. He just almost does. So he is pretty much on the line of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable when it comes to what you can do on a straight. He does crowd him, but he leaves pretty much exactly one car width. The Nissan isn't crowded beyond the white line. It's just the Nissan's reaction that kind of, the Nissan, as you can see here, he jinks a bit to the left because he thinks the Honda is about to hit him. In fact, let's have a look at it. So it says, in theory, driving sharply towards another driver does not force them to change their line, but humans being humans, this will usually induce a flinch response. How aggressive is too aggressive? This falls into a grey area covered by the spawning regulations, which we read. So for me, this is definitely on the limit of that grey area. And it's up to you guys where you think on this. I don't think I can necessarily make an official determination either way, because, I mean, there's the... In fact, I've just seen it. Okay, those pictures from earlier. Let me just go back, because it's clear that, the Honda is trying to prove his innocence in this video by showing these pictures, but these pictures are doing nothing, and I've just seen the contact. So now I'm going to put this solely on the Honda, because I was so on the edge about who I was going to blame on this, because it's so marginal. It really is so marginal. He's almost perfect on what he is allowed to do. And the Nissan, to be fair, is also doing a pretty good job at holding his line, not getting, not succumbing to the pressure, holding his line and keeping where he needs to stay. But I've just seen the contact. If you look, there's a little move to the right. There, contact. But then it's okay. They're still going. The Nissan doesn't get fazed by that. But then it's this final move to the left by the Honda that induces the final bit of contact. There it is. That contact is enough in my eyes, because it just puts the Nissan's rear left tyre off the track and obviously the contact happened on the right rear as well. So it sends oh, hello. If you're hitting this part of the car, it's going to send the back end around this way. That's exactly what happens. I'm glad I spotted this now. So it's entirely, the Nissan was fine. The Nissan was holding his own, but it's entirely that contact right there. In fact, no, that was the first contact. It is that contact. So it was that contact right there that sends the back end of the Nissan around. It's just a small thing, but that's all you need to cause that. And he pushed the line too far in my eyes, and I think that the Honda is at fault for this one, for crowding the Nissan out too much, and in the end making contact, and it puts the left rear of the car off the track, and that is not allowed. He was walking the line pretty much perfectly, and then he went a millimeter across it, and that is enough to make it his fault in my eyes. And once again, this isn't a smart decision to be. Even if he'd gotten away with this and hadn't caused any contact, and it was completely the Nissan's fault for just getting messed up with it, this isn't a smart decision, because you're completely relying on the other car to not succumb to any issues with this or not get involved in any issues. And that's not always going to happen. And it didn't happen here. The Honda got away with it from a racing perspective because it was the Nissan that crashed out. But the Nissan crashes out and almost takes the Honda with it. So you're not making a smart decision by crowding someone out that much. Just accept sometimes that the position is gone and try to live to fight another day. But a lot of people don't seem to want to do that and can't bear the idea of giving up a single position at any point. But there will be a poll in the top right as always, and you can let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But I wouldn't necessarily blame anyone for thinking either way on this one, because it was such a fine margin. So here we are with our final clip with a familiar name on the right hand side there, but for once I'm not involved in an incident going on here, and I never will be with the Stewards Room. I don't like to talk about my own incidents because I can't possibly give an unbiased opinion. But yeah, there's a little bit of a coming together there and a cluster, and it's a bit of a mess. So let's try and unpack it. So first of all, what we can see here is that we've got the hot pink car ahead, and we've got the light pink car here. Now the light pink car is, taking the tighter line, and essentially he's on the racing line. This is pretty much the racing line. These three cars are on it. The car that we're looking at is slightly off it, and the hot pink car is definitely off it. He's quite far beyond the racing line. He's gone very wide. So as we continue the video on, we see that the hot pink car obviously goes too wide, and then at this point for me he's off the track, so it's his duty to then re-enter the track safely, and for me he doesn't do that. He just smashes into the side of the light pink car here, and that is entirely on the fault of the hot pink in that respect. This crash is entirely his fault, and he should have been waiting off the track for that. Now at this point it's difficult to say, one way or another, really who is at fault for something like this, because with in reality, if you take out the first part of the incident, the hot pink car is now on the racing line, and we're talking about smart decisions, and going in at this angle to this corner is not a smart decision, because the racing line does come from this way like that. We can see, I was just here as well, but I backed out of it because I thought the angle was going to be a little bit too harsh. This doesn't happen here, and the car that we're riding with tries to sort of stick it on the inside, but it's not necessarily the smartest decision to do that when you've got cars that are coming around the outside, because they're not going to be able to see you, especially at the closing speeds. So it's this second incident that we're primarily focusing on when it comes to voting on the poll and all that kind of stuff. So even though I would completely put all of the fault on the hot pink car for what happened earlier, and really that was not very good driving from him, we're looking at this decision specifically and this contact, and I would have to put it on the car that we're riding with, the light pink car, because regardless of what happened before, he's still, yes, this bit was his fault and he should be off the track and waiting, but he has resumed the racing line, and he's just taking the racing line into the next corner, whereas the light pink car is basically going too deep into a corner at too sharp of an angle, and that's what provides the contact. And obviously, as we saw from earlier on in the video as well, the point of contact, he does hit him, at the front wheel or front part of the car to the rear wheel, so he wasn't even halfway alongside for that, for any contact to be not the fault of the attacker. So I think when we're just talking specifically about this, it wasn't a smart decision to go into the corner at this tight of an angle at this speed, and I would put the fault for this collision here, and then the resulting cluster of nightmarishness that usually happens in stream races, I would put that at the fault of the light pink car for doing that. But I will also say that the dark pink car, the hot pink car, wasn't driving very well in the first part of the clip. But we're just talking specifically about the second part of the clip and what happened here and who was at fault for this bit. Like I said, the poll is going to be in the top right, and you can let me know your thoughts down below. Some interesting clips today. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a lot of chat about who was at fault for each of these, because some of them could go either way. But that's my thoughts anyway. Those are my decisions, and you guys can, like I say, vote on the polls, which pop up on the top right in the cards, and comment down below and let me know your thoughts as well. But that's pretty much it for this episode. You can find in the video description all the info and links that you may need to submit your own clips, and if you'd like to support me, you can do so on Patreon by becoming a YouTube member or simply subscribing and liking the video. Thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.